Okay, so we shall start. We'll start when everyone joins. Okay, welcome everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome Shubham. Welcome Yalappa. Welcome Chandana. Welcome Ashwarya. Good afternoon to all. So I'll just go through what is we are going to cover in today's class. So just to remind you, this is your fifth and final chapter of module 4. Once we complete this, we have successfully completed all our 4 modules. So I'll just tell you what you have studied in this module 4 previously. So if you recall, good afternoon Arjun, good afternoon Arshita, Viviana, good afternoon, welcome. So is there any buffering? I hope there is no delay here. Anyway, so if you recall, we have studied in this module about security features. First we saw virus and worms and other malwares is one of the chapters. Then there was firewalls, right? Then there was intrusion detection and prevention system is one of the chapter. And last time we have seen something like 802.11 wireless LAN security, right? So this is the fifth one, web security. If you recall, in what is happening in 802.11 WLAN security, it was like the concept of wireless networks. Since because these wireless networks are open in nature, like, right, any hacker can attempt to attack because there is no physical medium, there is no wire, so there is a attack possible in the wireless networks, right? So we proposed some protocols or some features to provide security in wireless networks. Remember, there were like WEP, wired equivalence privacy, that failed on all the you know account of authentication, confidentiality, providing all these. So we had WPA, right? Wi-Fi protected access. Then there was another version, Wi-Fi protected access 2, right? So that is what we were using. Now coming back to the web security part. Okay, first of all, let me acknowledge some of the viewers. Harshita, Jashi, Supriya, Harika. Good afternoon, everyone. So today we are going to learn about web security. Now the first question that I should ask is, what do you understand by difference between internet and what is your web? Do you think there is a difference between internet and web? Good afternoon, Nazir, welcome. Basically, you can tell internet is something like interconnection of different networks, right? Various networks connect, network of network. Whereas what is web then? Basically, web is a collection of information stored in the form of your web pages. And how do you access this information stored in the web pages? By the medium of something we call as internet. Through internet we access the information stored in the web pages. Okay, so there's a basic difference between internet and web. And you can tell web is nothing but a short form of World Wide Web. It's an information space where documents and other web resources are identified by something called as URL, Uniform Resource Locator. and it is accessible by internet. So you can tell what caused the emergence of web. Emergence of web happened in 1993, and it helped to change the way millions of users shop, okay, and pay their bills or do some other activities, right? So basically, a common term used to identify web application that some users uh, or the features is nothing but your web service, right? So, and how do a user access web services? Through a client software, something called as a browser, right? So this is just some basic thing that they have given here. It's a they have defined like something like uh, software system identified by URL. Okay, here it is mentioned as URI, I think. So I'll just change it to URL, whose public interfaces and bindings are defined and described by XML. Now what is XML? That is another markup language. You would have heard about hypertext markup language. A basic question can anyone can ask you to state any difference between HTML and XML. Obviously it's a hypertext markup language, and this is extensible markup language, but you can tell there is no uh, predefined tags in XML. It's all user defined tags. Adil, welcome Ronak, good afternoon. Shilpa, good afternoon, right? So that's a basic difference about XML and HTML. Now, so in web services there are actually three entities involved. Let me call it as a requester. Requester is your client. The provider is nothing but your server, and the last one is your registry. So provider, registry, or they publish all the services in the public registry. You can see the diagram over here. Okay, before I talk about that, let me tell you the registry. Okay, what I mentioned three entities, right? Requester is your client. It discovers the services by requesting registry for the services and which match the certain criteria. Providers, nothing but your servers. It publish their services in a public registry. Now once the requester has identified the provider, means once the client has identified the server whose service it needs, it binds to the binds and invokes the service of the provider. If you see this diagram here, so you will understand this. There are three entities. What are those? Provider, requester, and registry, or nothing but it is called as service broker. So what are the three operations happening? Publishing, discovering, and last one is your bind and invoke. So good afternoon, Kim, Rashmi, welcome. Now, so I was talking about XML, right? XML is I don't know if you have studied XML in the curriculum. It's outside of your curriculum, if I think, and it is still used. XML language is still used with the combination of different domain. Now, so it's a, you can tell XML is a meta markup language. It is used for textual representation of your data, and it allows you to define languages to represent again the textual representation of data. It is easy to understand because all the tags that are used in XML are user defined. It is very expressive, semantics along with data, well structured, easy to read and write from programs. Okay, so they have mentioned advantages of XML. So I don't think you can get the exact question, but what you can get is describe the three entities of web services and explain about XML. So you can tell about these things. It is very expressive, well structured, all those things, and some advantages of XML, like it's easily readable, very expressive, flexible, customizable, easy to use from programs, widely used and supported. Okay, so these are nothing but possible advantages of XML. And I would like to tell you that tags that are used in HTML are used to tell the browser how to display the content of a web page, right? Whereas XML tags, on the other hand, are used to describe data, in particular to structure of data. Like unlike you can say, unlike HTML, XML doesn't have predefined tag set. Instead, XML is a meta language. It is called as a meta language used to define a tag set. So you can see the okay example. If you have seen how HTML starts in web, you would have studied this, right? There is a tag, then there is a sub tag. You write the content or in between that, and you have to close that particular tag by this / and the same tag name, right? Now before we move forward, what's in an XML document? There are three things: elements and attributes are the most important, and there are some other details. So what are elements and what are attributes in an XML document? Can we differentiate between the elements and attributes? That is our goal. So which one is your element, which one is your attribute here? Can you identify here? Okay, okay. So what they have told, elements are freely definable tags, something like article, title, author, and they start with the start tag, something like this article, like these two symbols, and ends with a / just before the tag name. So this is a simple example of your element. It may have a name and a content. Elements may be nested, elements may be empty. Okay, so it's a simple XML document, this one here, right here. So in this document here, you can see which is your elements. Elements, I mentioned, it's a freely definable tags, right? As they have mentioned here. So article, author, title, abstract, and index, all these things are your freely definable tags, your elements. Okay, so as you know about these things, very simple. This is start tag, and it whenever the same tag is having the uh, / and then the tag name, it's the end tag. So what is represented in the green is your elements, and what is in the blue, that is your contents of the elements, or you can call it as sub elements. Now what is your attribute? So if you see here something like section, in the same tag, see section followed by number equals to 1, title equals to introduction. This is your attributes. It's a simple example of your attributes. So what example we have here is attribute with some name. Okay, so this is the name, right? Introduction, and this is the value 1, and you can say these are represented in the double quotes, enclosed in your double quotes. So welcome Asher, welcome Menka, right? So that is a difference between elements and attributes. It's a very simple thing. Now, so what they have told, elements may have attributes in the start tag that have a name and a value, something like this. So what are the difference between elements and attributes? How will you mention it? So only one attribute with a given name per element. In the element, there is only one attribute with a given name, right? But there can be arbitrary number of sub elements. Whereas attributes have no structure, it is simply strings. While elements can have sub elements, as we saw before. Okay, so for example, if you have this example, person, born, some date, died here, Alan Turing, person, proved that. So which is your attribute? This is your attribute. Born, some value, died, some value. Okay, elements could be this person, right? Priyanka, welcome. So this is about your XML. This will not be asked you about this diagram, Okay, so one more thing one more property of XML is a well-formed document. Okay, and a well-formed document must adhere to some following rules, and these rules you are already heard in your web subject. You had this subject, right? Web technologies, or was it in seventh semester? Is it in seventh semester? I'm not able to recall. Anyway, so every start tag has a machine end tag. Means if something like text, it should have something like / text. That is to indicate the ending of that. Okay. Then elements may be nested, as we saw here in title. See, title, there is one more text. They can be abstract, they can be subsection. Okay, like that. There must be exactly one root element. A root element is, which one is root element? Something like this article at the top, and this is ending here. That is your root element. It could be anything. Attributes values must be quoted. You have seen that example. Even here, it's enclosed in the double quotes. Elements may not have two attributes with the same name. Okay, that is also there. Two attributes with the same name is not possible. Comments and processing instruction may not appear inside tags. Okay, inside tags only the content you can mention. Okay, so you see this example, you will understand. Next thing is okay, it's the same thing what they have mentioned here. See, attributes with name and name and attributes. Sorry, attributes with name and value. Right. So XML schema basics. Okay, so what XML schema does basically is what they have mentioned here. It's an XML application. It provides simple types like string, integer, date, time, duration, language. It allows defining possible values for elements, defining complex types, defining types derived from existing types, all those things. Okay, so this is most important thing here. Some protocols for web services. So we have something called as SOAP. It's a simple object access protocol. It was standardized by W3 School. You would have most of you would have heard about this organization or site, W3 School. So it was standardized by W3 School in a framework for arranging structured information over the internet. So protocol defines one-way message transfer between two entities. So a two-way message transfer as employed in client to server, you would have experienced that. It's in client to server, it is two-way message transfer, but here SOAP protocol defines a one-way message transfer between two entities. Okay, basically what is a SOAP message? A SOAP message is an XML document. It's an XML document. It's made up of an envelope. It includes an optional header and a mandatory body. So it's a XML document made up of an envelope. It includes an optional header and mandatory body. You can see okay, it is mentioned here. Yeah. So what is happening in header? It's a generic container for control information. Body element represent the message payload, and they have mentioned SOAP may run on top of your HTTP or SMTP. Okay, SOAP can be used over any transport protocol such as TCP, HTTP, and SMTP. Right. So transfer protocol, right? As hypertext transfer protocol, simple mail transfer protocol. Okay, transmission control protocol. Right. So this is an example of a typical example of SOAP message. It can contain the body of the SOAP message can contain remote procedure calls in the XML format. So you can see that SOAP followed by colon envelope XML NS SOAP. So this is nothing but your SOAP message in HTTP post request. And here we have SOAP message in HTTP response. So it's nothing but request and response messages. So we'll move forward to the another concept called as WSDL. Basically, WSDL is your web service defining language. It's a language for describing your web services. Okay, the operation and the communication protocol used by the web services are identified by WSDL, and a complete WSDL service description includes two various elements. So what are those? Type. Okay, not two various elements, it can include various elements, something like type, managers, operations, post type, and all the bindings. See, it's mentioned here: operation, port types, and bindings. And on the right side you can see the port type that includes one operation comprising of two messages, right? So it's a, as you can see here, port type name, port type 1, we have input message, message 1, output message, message 2. So what is the role of WSDL? Why it is used? It the operations and communication protocol used by the web services is identified or given by WSDL. Okay, so we have also you have to understand what is operation, what is the meaning of operation, what is the meaning of your message in this. So you can tell operation is the abstract definition of an action, whereas message is the abstract definition of data being exchanged as part of your operation. So you also have something like UDDI. It's called Universal Description, Discovery and Integration. So what exactly is this? It's a registry, or you can tell it's a catalog that allows businesses across the globe to list themselves on the internet, right? The client discovers web services by accessing the registry for specific services, and usually the SOAP manages all these requests, and in the response they are provided access to the WSDL that describe the operation, messages, protocol for the desired web service. Okay, so that is a very simple concept of UDDI. So it's to allow businesses across the globe to list themselves in the internet, right? So then we have something called as WS security. So we have three things here mentioned here: token types, XML encryption, XML signature. So WS security, also called as your WS sec, addresses some of the most basic problems in securing messages used in web services. Its main function, you can tell, to provide encryption and signature. So we'll just talk about the token types itself. Its main function is to define XML elements that are used to communicate security tokens in the header of the SOAP message, all those things. Okay, you can just read about these, right? Okay, and it also, you can mention, it also works with the in the coordination with XML encryption standard as well as XML signature standard. So with XML encryption standard, it defines the syntax and processing rules to encrypt one or more parts of your SOAP message. And in signature, XML signature standard, it defines syntax and processing rules used to create and represent a digital signature on one or more parts of your SOAP message. Here we have to encrypt Here we are talking about creating and representing digital signature on one or more parts of your SOAP messages. Okay, so this example of token types they have given here, right? Okay, we'll talk about XML encryption. So it's a very straightforward thing. It defines XML elements, right, for representing encrypted data and keys used for encryption. And one of its key attributes is that it allows encryption at the different levels of granularity. So entire document is nothing but a complete XML element within a document, and it has the content of an XML element. So it's an example here, XML encryption. Okay, so what are the three things it can contain? A type attribute. Type attribute indicates the type of the information encrypted and the information about the algorithm used for encryption. So you have cipher data, a reference to the cipher, encrypted key, the key you or the pre-shared key or the session key used for encryption. So it's a simple representation of your XML encryption. Whereas if we talk about XML signature, it specifies syntax for signature and signature keys. Okay, so also while offering a rich set of options for signing XML document. Let's say, for example, part of the document can be signed by the entity. So first step in generating an XML signature is canonicalization. Okay, how will I say that word? As you can see right here, right? The third part here, I am not able to block it. Anyway, so canonicalization method. Okay, it's a funny word. Anyway, so the part of the document that needs to be signed are first transferred into the canonical form before computing their hashes. Signature are included in the header of the SOAP message containing the document, and the major element and the sub elements contained in the signature are shown here in this diagram. Okay, so you have something like signed info, you have signature value, key info. Okay, all these have some meaning which we can read here. In sign info, it has something relation to the algorithm used for signature. In signature value, you have it contains digital signature value on entire element. Key info is nothing but it is required to verify digital signature at the receiver end. So all these things, they all have some meaning, right? And the example and this description is given here, right? So this is one more thing, SAML. So we are almost at the end here, just finish this. SAML is your security assertion markup language, right? So it defines three types of assertions. So basically it's XML based standard. It is created to enable portable identities and assertions these identities want to make, and it's nothing but your single sign-on. It defines a standard message exchange protocol and specify how it is transported. So there's a basically case study they have given, and how to assert this security assertion. And we have what criteria we have for that. We have authentication, authorization, and attributes. These are the three assertions on which we have to maintain this security assertions, right? So what is authentication? Subject was authenticated by a particular means, and what authorization is the granting or access or denying access to a specified resource. Attributes is nothing but the subject is associated with the supplied attribute. So I'll just tell you a scenario here. Okay, consider a principal. Let's say not a person or client. Consider a client C who happens to be a long-term client of a service provider SPI. Let's say SP1, service provider SP1. Let's say I am a long-term client of Airtel. So each time I request a service from Airtel, it needs to be, I mean, he needs to be authenticated, right? And this can be done by standard username and password. Let's say another possibility in the same service provider one is to store a cookie in my browser. My client, I'm in the client, right? So in my browser it maintains some cookie. So it would dispatch this cookie and the service provider each time I visit the server's website. Now suppose I wish to use the services of another service provider, let's say XYZ or Geo, let's say. So if I am a total stranger to the new service provider, on what basis that service provider trusts me? So however, service provider 1 and 2 both share a trusted relationship between each other. Servers share a trusted relationship between each other. They don't share trusted relationship with the clients, but with the servers it is there. So that second service provider, it could read the cookies stored in my browser, which was actually created by service provider 1. So basically you can tell it's a relationship that service provider 1 trusts me as a client. So if service provider 2 knows that service provider 1 trusts me as a client, then automatically service provider 2 also be willing to trust me. So these are nothing but some security assertions, right? So let's say here service provider 1 is your assertion party. It performs the role of identity identity protection or identifying. So service provider 2 is a consumer of assertion and it is referred to as relying party. It's relying on the assertion made by service provider 1. So it's very simple, right? Hope you got that example. And some of the common elements that is mentioned here is who is the issuer, what is the signature, subject, and what are the condition which was on which the assertions were made and were evaluated. So all those things. So a simple example of your XML code, and you have something like some other standards like some trust security policies, and it's not that important here. Just have to mention, just have to know that how assertions are made by this web services applications. So basically that's all actually, I guess. Yeah, so this is the last part here, last slide here. So web server or web security, it could be used in the following manner. They have given a case study here, so you can just read this. And web security, why it is useful is the web security policy enables a web service to specify security tokens it will accept for authentication and access control, right? So an importer must authenticate himself for a given exporter through a SAML token signified by a global bank. They have given an example of a global bank. So let's say a importer or the client authenticating himself to the local bank first via login and password, then local bank itself must authenticate itself to the global bank using a challenge response protocol that we have seen in the authentication 3 or the authentication 2 in conjunction with digital certificate. So this is how it works in the background. So overall, this is talking about your web security policy. So you can have a question like, what is the most important things on which the questions will be asked? So you can mention, you can get an idea like SML is an important topic, security assertion markup language. You have SOAP, you have UDDI, you have XML this web service security, token types, XML encryption, XML signature, right? Wsdl, and the SOAP message format, and overall the first what we talk about, XML elements, XML attributes, and even this, what are the entities involved in a web service. So basically this is very straightforward, very easy chapter, and that is what we have covered. So this covers your 4 modules. So next thing is your module 5, which talk about your IT acts and protection laws, all those very theoretical rules and regulations, which I prefer not to take on because it's very basic. You can just read in points, but still I will have a look on that, and we'll see what can be done if we can do some kind of a seminar from student side, or some other presentation. Okay, so we'll see. It's a very basic. The most important things, that the most complex thing is already covered for you in this cryptography, network security, and cyber law, this particular subject. So that remaining module 5 is very simple, and you can expect some questions like how I given in assignments. The same set of questions you can expect in the exam also, right? So thank you all. This is all I have for you in this class. So web security, we have studied web services security in this. So thank you all, and please fill out the Google form which I'll be sending after this, and that's all from my side. Thank you all. If any questions related to this particular session, please let me know afterwards, or in a WhatsApp, or you can mail me. And make sure you hit the like on this video also, and share it to your friends. I'm seeing some very few students have joined today's session, but anyway, thank you all, and hope you have a good day after this. Thank you. Bye bye.